Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, June 7th, 2020. And today we're going to take a look at the number of Republicans that have announced that they are either, number one, struggling to vote with Donald Trump and vote for him, and some Republicans even saying that they will be voting for Vice President Biden. Today, Mitt Romney made a very notable statement when he came out in favor of the Black Lives Matter movement, going to a protest, which was very surprising to say the least. And numerous Republicans have said that they are struggling with the idea of supporting President Trump in his bid for re-election or even voting for him. Considering the fact that President Trump is starting to lose the endorsements of some Republicans who may not have been full-fledged supporters of him in 2016, but certainly did vote for him. Jeb Bush, George Bush, Colin Powell, Mitt Romney, a number of these Republicans, they did have a firm opposition to President Trump. However, I will say that they did not end up voting for Hillary Clinton, nor did they campaign for Hillary Clinton. When we take a look at this list of people, some of these people had no comment, whereas before, of course, they would say they're voting for the incumbent Republican president. Who else? In a time that is America is extremely divided, it looks like a number of these Republicans are starting to understand that they may not necessarily agree with President Trump. There hasn't been too many notable Republicans who have come out in firm opposition to President Trump, except for the fact that President George W. Bush has said that he will not vote for Donald Trump on Election Day. Colin Powell, the Secretary of State under George W. Bush, saying that he will vote for Vice President Biden. Mitt Romney saying that he will not vote for President Trump, which is pretty much the precursor for the next couple of months. And there's a very real possibility that these candidates and these Republicans end up supporting Joe Biden as a candidate. When we take a look at the states that they come from, their names may hold some weight. We have Jeb Bush, who served in the state of Florida, George Bush, who served as the president of the United States. Donald Trump won on the backs of a number of George Bush voters, won 2 times. Colin Powell, pretty notable, actually got some electoral votes back in 2016 if you want to look too far into it. Lisa Murkowski, who is one of the more notable Republican senators, she has said that she is struggling to vote for Donald Trump for re-election, and after he attacked her yesterday, I will say that it's going to be a lot more difficult for her to say if she's going to support Donald Trump. But the big ones for me are Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan and John Boehner. This was pretty much the Republican trifecta back in 2012. John Boehner was Speaker of the House. Paul Ryan was a Wisconsin representative as the vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party, and Mitt Romney was at the top of the ticket. It is now a very real possibility Mitt Romney endorses the Democratic candidate Joe Biden, and that comes as a result of Donald Trump constantly berating him, whether it was before Donald Trump was elected or even after. That small period of time where Mitt Romney was being considered for Secretary of State would have seemed like a big, screw you to Donald Trump supporters, because Mitt Romney was in firm opposition to Donald Trump, but he still ended up voting for him in 2016. Now, a lot of these Republicans are starting to put their foot down. Sidney McCain comes from the state of Arizona. In fact, the entire McCain family seems to be in opposition to Donald Trump and his re-election bid. Now, when we talk about some of these people who say no comment, I think that it is very important to note that Paul Ryan and John Boehner, pretty much the notable faces of the Republican Party prior to Donald Trump, say that they don't necessarily have a comment as to who they're voting for in November. I mean, at this point in time, the Republican Party is going to have to start to do damage control. As soon as Mitt Romney, or if he does endorse Vice President Biden, a number of Republicans might end up following. Lisa Murkowski, Paul Ryan, Susan Collins in an effort to save her re-election bid, George W. Bush. I mean, you literally have one of the former Republican presidents who served before Obama saying they're not backing the incumbent president. I mean, that is insane that this is even happening at this point in time. When we take a look at all of the states that these people are from, we take a look at numerous swing states and numerous states that Donald Trump won in 2016. While New York and Massachusetts, being Colin Powell and Mitt Romney states, the reason why Mitt Romney has Massachusetts and Utah is because he served as governor for Massachusetts and then now a Utah senator. But I will say that both of those states are supposed to go to Joe Biden. But that leaves a total of 115 electoral votes from states that voted for Donald Trump back in 2016. Wisconsin, Ohio, Florida, Texas, Arizona are swing states for the 2020 election. And it is possible that if Mitt Romney chooses to do the ultimate, screw over for Donald Trump, enters the presidential race and vote splits in Utah, which is a very long shot for the Democratic Party, but right now, the Republican Party, not the Republican Party, these Republicans altogether seem to be either, number one, dabbling in the idea of coming out in active support of Donald Trump or not supporting him whatsoever. When you're talking about these candidates who say, these Republicans who say no comment, You have to realize that no comment doesn't mean, oh, we're secretly voting for Trump. They're saying no comment because these are two former speakers of the House that served under a Republican majority that may not be confident enough to say that they're voting for either Joe Biden or not voting for Donald Trump whatsoever. And I do think that's a lot in a sense to save their at least somewhat left of their political career. Both of these candidates, I don't know why I keep saying the candidates, both of these Republicans have since retired from the House of Representatives, so they don't really have a re-election bid to worry about. But I will say that they are very notable names. John Boehner, very firm in opposition to President Obama. Paul Ryan, a very notable name in the House of Representatives, became Speaker of the House after John Boehner. So, when we're taking a look at all of that, these are notable names within their own states. John Boehner in Ohio, Paul Ryan in Wisconsin, and the fact that these Republicans may not be supporting President Trump or have already said they're not voting for him could end up being very good news for the Biden campaign. They're actually expected to drop a Republicans for Biden campaign sometime in the near future, which means that it is a very realistic possibility that the Biden campaign actively recruits numerous Republicans, not just the 8 on your screen right now, but others to come out in active support. James Mattis coming out with a comment. He worked with President Trump. He was advocating for him in the beginning. Now he says that Donald Trump is intentionally trying to divide the nation, the only president he has seen in his lifetime to intentionally try to divide the nation. We have Mitt Romney coming out saying he will not back Trump. Colin Powell, a very notable name amongst Republicans and the nation, saying that he is voting for Vice President Biden. You have a former two-term president since the year 2000, between 2001 and 2009, saying he will not vote for Donald Trump. Again, we are living in a very weird time period. I never thought that the 2012 Republican nominee would have a shot at endorsing the 2020 Democratic nominee. It just seemed insane. Mitt Romney was 4 years before Donald Trump, and now it looks like Mitt Romney is going to actively try to get Donald Trump out of office. And a lot of this doesn't become as a result of these Republicans all of a sudden having liberal values or wanting a Democrat in office. More so, they want to avoid Donald Trump running the Republican Party for the next 4 years. Jeb Bush, I understand. Paul Ryan, I understand. Mitt Romney, I understand. Cindy McCain, I understand. I pretty much understand all of the reasonings behind numerous Republican officials as to why they may not be supporting President Trump in 2020 or may be very silent in their response to whether or not they will be supporting President Trump. Number one, I think that the fact that McCain was in firm opposition to President Trump, and as is his family, is going to hurt his chances in Arizona. McCain outran Donald Trump's margin by 8% in 2016. So don't expect too much good news for Donald Trump in Arizona. As for Florida, let's say the Republican Party doesn't come out in full force. What if you take, a governor and say they don't endorse, a former governor and say they don't endorse Donald Trump? I'm not going to say that's necessarily going to be an automatic benefit for Vice President Biden, but it can't help Donald Trump not being endorsed by a former politician in Florida. And Florida already seems to be with 1 million new voters on the voter rolls and a number of things happening that seem to be favoring the Democrats nationwide, whether it's the COVID-19 pandemic or the protests that are happening around the country. It seems that the country is very angry. And if Florida ends up going to the Democratic Party, again, another victory for them. Paul Ryan's lackluster response to the whether or not you will be voting for Donald Trump in 2020, I don't think that single-handedly alone will flip Wisconsin, but it doesn't give any Republicans that were very Mitt Romney and John McCain type Republicans any more reason to vote for Donald Trump in his re-election bid. They may not vote for Vice President Biden, but they may just end up not voting at all. And again, turnout is key for both parties on this in this election, but I will say that decreased white turnout will benefit the Democratic Party in the grand scheme. As for the state of Ohio, this is another swing state. While I don't think that John Boehner is going to directly have an impact on the 2020 election, if he does end up endorsing Joe Biden, it will be mildly beneficial. The Republicans for Biden movement has been pretty much mentioned because it's insanely surprising that there are notable Republicans. In 2016, sure, there was Republicans for Hillary. It was a country over party type movement, but it was only around 6% of the Republican Party that had voted for Hillary Clinton even on Election Day. So it was around 1 in 20 Republican voters, and it was pretty much negated by the 6-7% of Democrats that voted for Donald Trump. So when you think about that, it is possible the Republican Party loses more voters than they get from the Democratic Party, which would end up creating a deficit. And I do think that will be detrimental to Donald Trump's campaign if this list continues to add up past a former president, past a former Secretary of State, past a current senator, past a former governor. another current senator, 2 former speakers of the House. These are notable Republican names. These are not nobodies. These are not one-time serving representatives. This is not a Justin Amash situation. This is not a random representative from Nebraska. This is not a Ben Sass Facebook post about him in February 2016, then ended up voting for him on Election Day. No. These are numerous Republicans that are saying they are not going to either back Donald Trump or are struggling to. And I can almost guarantee if Donald Trump continues this trend of negative behavior for his reelection bid, they will end up deciding not just struggling, but come out in firm opposition of President Trump. And that can only be hurtful to his campaign, because a lot of Republicans look up to these candidates. A lot of Republicans look up to these notable officials, whether it's Lisa Murkowski for her bipartisanship, or whether it's George W. Bush as a former 2-term president, or it's Mitt Romney as a 2012 GOP nominee, now senator, or it's Paul Ryan, former Speaker of the House. Whoever it may be, their lack of endorsing and praise of Donald Trump will start to reflect on the national numbers and directly in these states alone. So that's pretty much it. I will try to update this graphic if the numbers do end up adding up for the Democratic Party in terms of Republicans not backing Trump. There is some discussion as to whether or not Mitt Romney is going to endorse Joe Biden. So I will update you guys on that, because I do think that will take a pretty notable media frenzy, and we'll be talking about that for quite some time. So again, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all tomorrow.